is up, everybody? It's your boy, Architect the Dreamer, and welcome to a brand new series brought to you by my lovely girlfriend, Amber. So, obviously, I am an artist and musician myself, and I think one of the things that kind of gets missed when people listen to music is what's behind the music. Now, as an artist, when I make something, it's mine to an extent, and then once it gets put out into the world, it becomes yours. It becomes whoever is listening to that. But there are still decisions that are made, there are choices that are made, there are reasonings behind how that song is made, behind the lyrics, behind musical choices, behind production choices, behind all of that. And probably over a month ago now, Amber came to me and said, "Hey, what if I interviewed you?" Which is terrifying for me because I'm the one that does the interviewing. I don't get interviewed. But she was like, what if I talked to you and asked questions that your viewers and your listeners might have about your music and give them a chance to kind of have a little peek behind the curtain. And so we're doing this first episode on the first single that I put out for my upcoming album, Weathered, which is called Isle of Scotland. I put this out about a year ago now. And what we want to kind of do is run through each of the songs that I'm putting out on this album, starting with the singles, which I have 5 singles out from this. And then once the album comes out, kind of dive into those as well and give you guys a little bit of kind of a commentary on that and a commentary on my process and kind of what I do. I promise you, this is not me being like self-obsessed and egotistical and wanting to talk about my music.
It was all me.
This is terrifying to me, but I thought it might be a cool thing to give you guys a little bit of an additional experience into my mind as an artist outside of doing the reactions. So before we get into that, if you're here, welcome. Thank you. I'm so glad that you guys decided to tune in. If you haven't already, make sure you click that subscribe button, click the like button, click that little bell so you'll get notified when I drop new videos. At the beginning of this video, you heard a snippet of this song, Isle of Scotland, that we're going to be kind of talking about today. And at the beginning of all of these episodes, I'm going to be playing a little clip of the song that we're talking about because some of these songs you guys might not even be familiar with if you haven't checked out my music, and I've only really been listening to the ones that have been at the beginning of my reactions, which were Deconstruct and Bones, which we'll get to those eventually. But along with that, I do have members-only content now. I've got album reviews. I've got reactions that are only going to be there. I've got sneak peeks of new music. In fact, if you subscribe now to the $5 a month option, you will hear a raw acoustic version of a song that's going to be on my upcoming album, and that's the only place you're going to hear that version of that song.
And it's really good.
She was one of my first members. Can you tell?
Yay!
No. But I just wanted to, if you guys are going to support me in any financial way, I want to give back to you and give you guys something that is of value and that you guys might want. And then there's also just a $2 a month level, which is if you just want to support what I'm doing, you enjoy what I'm doing, and you just want to throw a couple bucks my way every month to help me do that. That's a way to do that as well. So without any further ado, I'm going to turn this over to you.
I'm so nervous.
You're the host now. So take it away.
So I'm not as trained on interviewing as Jared is. So I have my questions on my phone. So if you see me looking down, she's not texting, I promise.
Yeah,
I have all my questions. So just to kind of piggyback off of what he said, I know that a lot of you are coming into this like for his reactions to different music, but he's also like promoting his music as well. And a lot of you have had questions, and I've seen in the comments there's been questions about how he put together songs and what the meaning behind the songs were. And so I just thought this would be a really cool way to give you an opportunity to address everyone at one time, and also just kind of get to know you a little bit better. So other than just Jared the Reactor, ATD. So, okay. Ready?
Numero uno.
Question 1. So we are doing Isle of Scotland. What is the story behind this song and where did it begin?
So this particular song is at its core about being a child in an unsafe environment and wanting to just kind of get away. There were a lot of times growing up where I didn't feel safe at home, either emotionally or mentally or whatever. And a lot of times I would just end up locking myself in my room and I would put a CD on my boombox or I'd turn the radio on or something and just listen to music and do whatever. I would draw, I would play with toys, I would, whatever it was. And it wasn't until I started really going to therapy and working through a lot of the trauma that I have from my childhood where I kind of put the pieces together that like that was my attempt at kind of like escaping everything else that was around me to be able to just fall into an album or into a song or into an artist or whatever it was and just kind of be able to escape the crappy stuff that I was dealing with. And so I have Scottish in my heritage, and Scotland is a place that I've always wanted to visit. All the pictures, all the videos, everything that I see is just gorgeous, and I want to go there because of that, but I also I feel like there's just something cool about the idea of like visiting like where you're from, where you like where your ancestors are from and your heritage and everything. And so during the time when I was writing this song, I put this song out last year, but I wrote the song a year prior to that. So this song actually started being written well over 2 years ago, which was a lot closer to the period of time where I went no contact with my parents and was dealing with a lot of that trauma and working through things and trying to process things. And so I just kind of started writing this song, and I had this idea of like, if I could run away anywhere, where would I run away to? And it was like, oh, I would probably run away to Scotland and just be like alone in nature and enjoy like the Emerald Hills and enjoy just like the beauty that the world has to offer and just kind of get away from all of the bullshit that is going on in life. So that's kind of where it stemmed from. And if you listen lyrically to it, there's a lot of that in there of like trying to impress somebody that doesn't even like care or know who I am or love who I am, and like breaking my back and ending up hating myself just to make somebody else love me when like that's probably not going to happen. And so yeah, that's kind of where that came from.
You answered multiple of my questions in one.
Sorry.
It's okay. It might take me a minute now because I got to read them. It was a very thorough answer. So, like, okay. Was there a specific moment, image, or feeling that sparked the first lyric or melody of the song?
There's a song called State Lines by an artist called Novo Amor, and he's one of my favorites. I've been listening to him for years. I kind of like to say he's the love child of Bon Iver, because Bon Iver kind of came onto the scene 20 years ago with this really unique sound, and Skinny Love took over the world, and it was just something that felt kind of fresh, especially in like the indie rock scene. And part of the freshness of that was his use of falsetto and how much he leaned into that. Because if you listen to Justin Vernon's voice when he speaks, he's got a deeper voice, kind of like what I do. And then you hear this falsetto, and it's just like angelic. And Novo Amor is very much cut from the same cloth of that. And honestly, like over the last 5 years, I think Novo Amor is an artist that I've listened to more than just about anybody. And his song State Lines was like blowing up on TikTok a couple years ago. Everybody was using it in like emotional videos as like background music or whatever. But like I fell in love with the song, and the melody and the chord progression of that song felt to me very much like it just felt like a nomad just traveling with like to like really simplify it, literally just like a knapsack and just like walking through the country or wherever they're at, and just like no care in the world, no job, no stress.
Kind of like a train hopper.
Yeah, a little bit. And so that was honestly like, I was obsessed with that song. And when I started working on this, it wasn't necessarily even an intentional thing, but that was kind of the vibe and the feel that started coming out with that, in the way the guitar was, and the melody, and even just the very first note of like, this entire song is in falsetto. Like there are other songs that I have on this album that have no falsetto, or the falsetto's layered in, or it's kind of like a 50-50 where you can hear both my regular register and my falsetto at the same time. This one is very heavily on that falsetto, and part of the reason for that is like, when I listen to someone like Bon Iver or Novo More or Sufjan Stevens or Iron and Wine, or like any of the artists that are kind of in that genre, there's like a free spiritedness to it, and very much like a kind of just like letting go, because it's very vulnerable to sing in falsetto.
Yeah.
It's not something that's incredibly easy to do. Even if you want to take it from like a live perspective, like singing in falsetto live is very difficult, because you are using the air in your lungs so much quicker when you're singing in falsetto than you do when you sing in your regular register. So when I take a deep breath and I have that air in my lungs, that's depleting so much quicker when you're singing falsetto, because you're pushing your vocal cords to a place that is like, that's not its natural place to be.
Okay.
And so that State Line song, again, pretty much the entirety of that is in falsetto. And I was like, man, I feel like I have a pretty solid falsetto. Like, I've used it in other things before, and I've used it sparingly. And even when you and I started dating, like, there was an ongoing joke of like, we would listen to like Whitney Houston and Panic at the Disco, and like these songs where like the artists are hitting these absurd notes, and the joke was like, can I hit that in a falsetto?
Yeah.
And so it was a side, especially like when I came back to music and started putting stuff out, it was so hip hop centered, and there was so much, and even in the beginning of that, I wasn't even doing my own hooks. I was like getting other artists to do the hooks, because I was so nervous about singing on my own songs, because I was like, I'm a rapper. Like, even though I'm a classically trained vocalist and whatnot, it was like, people don't want that, because when I came back, everybody would like talk about like my lyrical ability and the way that I could like hit different pockets, and I was like, nobody wants to hear me sing. And so for the longest time, I didn't do that. And then as I started kind of expanding into making music outside of hip hop, and really like Broken Complete, which is my 2021 album, which is like a pop punk metal ballad album, I experimented with falsetto a little bit more in there. And then since then, over the last 4 years, I've been putting that in more and more things, but I had never done something that was like just that. And with all those artists I mentioned earlier being such a heavy influence on me, I was like, I kind of want to like play in that sandbox and like see what I can do with that. And so that's where this started, and the initial melody of that falsetto coming in from the jump, and the way that the guitar is in there, and the other instruments that I have, it was like really just me sort of trying to pay homage to the artists that like I had been listening to and obsessed with. Yeah. And then it just kind of took on its own thing and became its own thing.
This is fun. I'm learning.
For you.
I'm learning so much. One thing that I don't like. We are dating, yes, and like I get to hear all his music, and like typically I know the story like the immediate story behind your music, but like how your mind works to get there. Like you and I really don't have these conversations. Like I don't ever know the lyrical side of things or like how your brain gets to the point of like a completed song. So like I get to learn things too. This is kind of fun. Let's see. So how close is the final version of the song to what you first imagined the song to be?
Oh goodness. So you can see on our other screen up here, I have the Word document. So pretty much anytime I start a song, I will create a Word doc or a Google doc, and that's where I'll put all of my lyrics in there that then I can go in and edit. And then also I have the chord progressions. Mm-hmm. So pretty much everything that I write starts on a guitar or a piano. And most of the time it just kind of starts with a basic chord progression. So just like strumming the basic chords or just playing the basic chords on the piano. And then once I have that established, because there's a lot of songwriters that write lyrics and then they put those lyrics to music. And that's not the way that I write music. The music inspires the lyrics for me. Mm-hmm. So oftentimes, whatever chord progression, if it's a minor chord progression, that's generally going to lend itself to me writing a sadder song. Right. If it's a major chord or if it's something else, then sometimes that will lead to something that's maybe more upbeat or happier. But a lot of times it starts with literally just me like playing that chord progression on my guitar until I can figure out what the melody is. And then once I figure out what the melody is, what the vocal melody is, then I will start writing lyrics down. And a lot of times when I start writing a song, I have no idea where it's going until I get maybe through the first verse, or if the first thing that I start writing is the chorus, then sometimes that will influence how I write the verses and either the content of it or the structure of it. If you listen to it, like if you were sitting in the room with me, listening to me play the guitar as I write these things, they're very, very like stripped away. There's not a whole lot of like vocal gymnastics with it or anything like that. It's like I'm just trying to get like the groundwork and the basis for whatever this is going to be. And then once I start tracking the instruments and I have even if it's just the guitar, or if I am in full production mode and I produce the whole instrumental and then start doing things after that, then that's really where it starts to form into a closer version of what it's going to be. But one of the songs that we're going to talk about that I released last year as well is called Down the Coast, is a song that is super fascinating for me to go back and listen to, because I wrote that song in 2010. And I found on an old YouTube channel that I had tied to an old email a video of the very first time that I played that song. And there's a whole bridge that I never put into the version I put out last year because I forgot that it even existed. Mm-hmm. I didn't even realize, like, I had completely, for whatever reason, blocked out that song had a bridge. Like, and so the version that you guys hear now on streaming platforms is not the version that like I originally wrote, because the original version had a whole ass bridge to it that, like, for whatever reason, when I went into the studio to record the first demo of it, it never made it into that demo either. It was just this one video of literally the day that I wrote the song. Because that's what I used to, when I was younger, that's what I would do. I would set up like a shitty camera and I would record myself playing it. And that's how I would like record it so that I like knew what I was writing. Because like in 2008 or 2009, I didn't have any of the equipment or any of the stuff that I have now to do that. So recording a video was the best way to do that. So it's interesting looking at like songs, because there's several songs on this upcoming album that are songs from that project back in 2010 that never went anywhere, but that I just rediscovered those songs and I love them. And I think there's a lot of really good stuff in there. And so to answer your original question,
Yeah. Don't already answer things about another song that we.
Sorry. It does change and shift over time, and you can still hear the groundwork of it. But like this song, I didn't write it in falsetto, like at the very beginning. Like when I was coming up with the chord progression for it, and then I started writing the lyrics, I was writing it in a. It was the same key that I originally wrote it in, but I was singing it in a like. I've been waiting for a long... Instead of... And then when I started recording it, I was like, what if I went falsetto with this? And then that's kind of how it went. So the original version of it sounds very different because it doesn't... I'm not singing in the same space as I ended up singing in the final product.
Interesting. Okay. Okay, you already answered that question, so we're going to skip to the next one. Are there any lyrics in this track that people often misunderstand or that are overlooked?
I think sometimes people might look at this and think it's about a relationship. I've had that before. I've had people, which it can be. Like it can be about being in a relationship where, I mean, the last parts of the second verse is, why is it so hard to love who I am, but it's so easy to keep believing what you said. Everything is all mixed up. To make you love me, I end up hating myself. If you were to just like pull that lyric out and not have the background or the context of what I talked about earlier, that could very well be about a relationship and about like a relationship that like is one-sided, or where somebody is like losing themselves to try to like make the other person happy or whatever. And I think I'm a very specific writer. Like my songs are legitimately like my diary, like they're my thoughts, my therapy, everything like that. But I do think that they're, and I don't know that sometimes it's intentional, but I think sometimes in an attempt, this is going to sound so douchey, in an attempt to, because like I feel like I have like the mindset of like a poet. And so when you read poetry, there's very like flowery words, and there's very like the way that things are said are, you know how much I love metaphors. And so like very metaphorical. And by the nature of singing in metaphor a lot, there is a little bit more ambiguity to it for somebody to be able to apply it to whatever they want to apply it to. Linkin Park's one of my favorite bands of all time, and that's something that they always did really, really well, both whether it was Chester writing or Mike writing, is even though they might be writing about a very specific thing, you can apply what they're saying to a lot of different situations. And that is something that I want in my music. I don't want my music to be so personal that it's unrelatable, that like people are like, oh, that's a very specific. And I have songs like that. I've written songs about my suicide attempt. I've written songs about other things that are like very, very specific and personal, that like if you're listening to that song, that's not a song that you're going to go like bumping in your car and singing over and over again. Now you might relate to the content that's in the song. Maybe you felt the way that I'm talking about in that, or maybe you are able to relate to the place that I was in when I was writing that song. But some of them are very, very specific. And I think with this new record, both with Isle of Scotland and the other songs that are on it, there is a level of ambiguity in some of the stuff that I'm writing, which is intentional, because I want people to be able to... I said at the beginning, like, it's my song, and then I put it out in the world, and then it kind of becomes everybody else's song. And I think that's... like all of the bands that I love do that. And I think that's why like I relate so much to the bands that I listen to, is because there is that relatability to whatever it is that they're talking about. I can take that and I can apply it to a way that I might be feeling or a situation that I might be in. And so while this song is very specifically about me trying to use my imagination to escape from an unsafe environment as a child, there's a lot of things in this that somebody could take and apply to something else. And I think that's a beautiful thing. I think that, like, if somebody can listen to this and say, man, that second verse, those lyrics, like, I've been in a relationship and I've felt that way, and you just made me feel seen, then, like, that's, I don't care if they don't, if they don't pull my initial meaning for the song out of it. If they're able to listen to it and relate to it, and a song that we'll talk about later as well, but I had somebody comment on my Deconstruct lyric video that was talking about, like, that song's about me deconstructing from religion, but that they had an experience with one of their parents that they were able to relate to some of the things that I said in that. And I think that that's such a cool thing that, like, even though I wrote it about one thing, somebody is able to feel and connect to it in a different way. Because of the way that I'm writing it, and because of the way that I'm kind of delivering that message.
Yeah, that makes sense. What line in the song are you most proud of?
So it's a 2-line thing, because I just made a slight tweak to 2 things between the first verse and the second verse. But in the first verse, the second to last line is everything is all messed up. And then in the second verse, it's everything is all mixed up. And that was an intentional change, because the verse that I was singing in at that time, I felt like in the first verse, messed up fits better here, and mixed up fits better in the second one. But like, mixed up and messed up are kind of like cousins. Like, so if something is messed up, it can also be mixed up, and vice versa.
Yes.
But I do these things sometimes where, like, I do believe that repetition is important to a degree in music, because you want people to be able to sing, like, just being realistic. You want people to be able to sing these songs,
right,
and to memorize them, and to have them stuck in their head. And so having that repetition, but tweaking little things like that, keeps it from being too repetitive. And it also can give, like, some slight alternate meanings to things, while still, like, the everything is all is the same between the two. It's just the one word that's changed, but that one changed word can make it mean something entirely different. So I like doing little things like that in songs, where even like pre-choruses, or the lead up to a chorus will be basically the same, going from the verse to the chorus in the first verse and the second verse, but switching it up just a little bit to kind of give it a little bit more freshness, so that you don't feel like, oh, here we go again. I have songs that are very repetitive, but I think it's all about, like, the intention behind it. But I really like the little switch that I did on that.
Was there a word or a phrase in the song that you struggled to get just right?
I didn't know. The idea of going to Scotland was always there. I didn't know how to deliver that.
Okay.
Because, like, Scotland is kind of an isle. Like, it's part of the UK, so there's Scotland, Ireland, and England, so it's all kind of there. But I struggled for a really long time with the name of this, and having that particular verbiage of, like, is someone going to call me out and be like, Scotland's not an isle, or Scotland's not an island, or whatever. But
so then, did you have, like, Isle of Scotland? Did you know that was going to be the name of the song?
No, that was always the working thing, and that's what I wanted it to be. But multiple points as I was, like, working on it, I was like, should I change it to, like, something else that wouldn't be Isle of Scotland? Like, would it be, or would I just not have it even be Scotland, because I liked the idea of, like, running away to an island, and, like, being on, like, that was a part of this too, was, like, I liked the idea of being secluded on an island by myself, where, like, I was away from everybody and away from everything. And so, like, the imagery of being on an island was something that I really wanted. And then obviously, like, the meaning with Scotland there. And then I got to a point where I was just kind of like, fuck it. I don't really like care if it's the proper terminology.
Yeah.
I think it paints a picture. And at the end of the day, that was what I was more focused on, was like the imagery that I'm portraying of like running away to the Isle of Scotland is, I think it's poetic in its nature, and it allows you to, like, I'm a very visual person, so like there's a lot of things that I do lyrically that are intended to paint a visual picture in your head, and that was something that like I really wanted that picture to be painted. But the name of it and like the rest of the song was basically the same, but the name of it and the actual like run away to the Isle of Scotland was like, there were a lot of different potential things that could have been, that would have then inevitably changed the name of the song entirely.
Right.
But I did struggle with that a little bit. And like, I know I have a lot of subscribers because of Ren, and like over in the UK, there's a lot of people from Scotland and Ireland and England. So if Scotland is not an isle, please don't roast me in the comments. I made an artistic choice with the kind of poetic delivery of that, but I did struggle with that when I was putting it together.
What instruments or sounds were essential to this song's identity for you?
Definitely guitar for this one.
Can I add to that question?
Yes.
Just a little bit?
Yes.
So I know that we have discussed, sorry, I have to readjust. Like we've discussed the falsetto part of the song. There's a lot of layering in this song, and I think sometimes the artistic choices that are done in music get misinterpreted, and it's, to someone that's not trained, it sounds auto-tuned. So can you like explain how you get a song to sound the way it does with just layering the vocals, and like what that means?
Yeah.
As well.
So a lot of artists, especially like self-produced artists, like artists that like they do their own stuff, we put together basically, for lack of a better term, a bundle of effects that is fitting to our voice. And so included in that are things like EQs and limiters and de-essers and reverb and delay and echo and chorus effects or vocoder effects or things like that. Vocoder is like, that's what like Imogen Heap does, and Bon Iver does that a lot as well, where it's an effect where you're singing in a specific thing, and then the plugin will basically create harmonies that will go with the main vocal of what you're doing. And I have always been fascinated with vocoders, but with being able to be the vocoder.
Okay.
So like there's times where I'll sing something with the vocoder, and then I'll go through the plugin and I'll see what are the different harmonies that the vocoder is coming up with, and then I will try to sing those things.
Okay.
So
you are literally singing the same thing in different harmonies.
Sometimes I will use an actual vocoder because of like the sound of it. Like T-Pain doesn't need auto-tune, but there's this very specific sound that comes with auto-tune, not just the pitch correction, not just the vocal correction, but a very specific, like it's very prevalent in hip hop and pop music. And T-Pain has talked about it. He's like, I don't fucking need it. I just like it. I just think it sounds cool. Right. And so with a lot of the stuff that I'm doing on this record, I really wanted to have it be my voice that is sitting in those different spots. So my bass vocal, like what I do on just about every singing track, not so much on the hip hop stuff, but on just about every singing track, is the first thing I will do is record my main vocal, and then I will pitch it up an octave and pitch it down an octave. So I will have like a really, really low bass, and I'll have a really, really, really high pitch part, and then I will mix those in to where they're very, very subtle. Not to get like incredibly technical on it, but like normally I'm dropping those to like -20 decibels. Like it's very, very, very quiet. It's enough that you can hear it. It's one of those things where like, if you listen to it with it, you'll be like, oh yeah. And then if you listen to it without it, you'll be like, oh, something's missing. So it's not always something that is super noticeable unless you hear it without those things.
Okay.
Now, because a lot of what I did on this song and some of the other songs is falsetto heavy, when I put that falsetto with my baritone register and then my bass register, and sometimes if it's in a range that's enough for me to sing what I'm singing in falsetto in tenor. So if I can sing it in my actual voice without going to falsetto and have that paired with it, it creates this like this interesting effect that sounds digitalized without it being digitalized.
Okay.
And then when you put things like reverberation on it and delay, which sometimes the delay, like you can do different things. So you can do just like a basic delay where it's like delay, delay, delay. And whatever it is like, you can do like a ping pong effect where it goes back and forth between each side, which I like to use that one a lot because I'm autistic and ADHD, and I love 8D audio, and I love the idea of like my brain getting tingled. And so a lot of the stuff that I've been making on this album is literally for me to be able to like experiment with that side of things and creating something that makes my own brain tingle a little bit, but then can hopefully like do that with other people. So I'll start with my bass vocal, the octave up, the octave down, and then I will go through and I will just like, so an octave is based on semitones. So if, let's say your bass level is at 0, to go up an entire octave, it's 12 semitones. And so you go up a half step, you can go up a full, so a half step is 6 semitones, a full step is 12. But there's everything that's in between there. And so a lot of times I will try to, because I just personally love vocal layering. I think it adds so much depth to a vocal and makes it sound really cool, especially with the kind of music that I'm making. I will try to basically find a harmony that is at 3 semitones, at 6, at 9, and at 12 in both directions. So a lot of times these songs, by the time I'm done recording the vocals for them, I have 6, 8, 10 vocal tracks that are in various places within the mix. Some are in different places from a pan perspective, so left to right. Some are in a different place from a level perspective of like, okay, this one is a little bit louder because I want, like, let's say I'm singing this in falsetto and I'm getting some of the grit in my voice in there. I want that to really be kind of in the forefront a little bit more than maybe like this down here. But I try to like use my voice as an instrument to fill a full range of sounds. And so when you put those effects like reverb and delay and things like that on there, it can give it a digitized sound to it. It sounds very digital, because it is. I'm not working on an analog studio where I have tape that I'm like taking and cutting and splicing together. Everything I'm doing is in a DAW. It's being done digitally. I try really hard, and it's a very difficult thing because I end up being incredibly hard on myself, is I will record a vocal take until I get it as perfect as I possibly can.
He really does.
You've sat in on some of my studio sessions and have watched me do this, where like I'll record it, and literally if it's even one note that's off, I would rather re-record the whole thing to get it where I want it to be than go in after the fact and have to change it. Now, every song that has ever been on the radio that you've ever heard by every artist that you ever listened to has auto-tune on it to some degree. But I think people hear auto-tune and they think T-Pain, and they don't. Auto-tune is a pitch correction tool. And so a lot of people use it because they can't hit those pitches. And so they need that to kind of iron that out, which is fine. Like, there's a lot of pop music and a lot of hip hop music that does that. And it's a vibe. Travis Scott's a perfect example. Like, Travis Scott singing live, he does not have the best voice, but he knows how to sing for auto-tune. And he knows how to make that work for him in a way that is just a vibe. And like, that's totally okay. There's nothing wrong with that at all. I try my best to not have that digitation on there if I don't need to, or if it's not beneficial to the song. I have a song off of my EP from the end of 2023 called Pop Song. I think that's what the name of the song is?
Oh my God.
I don't even know the name of my own song. It's okay. I think I just called it Pop Song. And the point of the song was like, I'm just going to write it like a cheesy pop song. And so I threw auto-tune on it way more than I would anything else because I was trying to...
You know what I'm doing. It's bothering me.
I know. You're going to...
You have it pulled... Yeah.
Here, we're just going to... I'm fairly certain that's what it was called. Me. It is. It's really sad. Like, and part of it's like I just make so much music that I don't remember. Pop hit. Jesus.
There we go.
Goodness, I knew it wasn't Pop Song, but I knew the word pop was in it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
But so I will from time to time I'll throw that in there depending on what I'm making to make it a vibe.
That was definitely like a very vibey song that was just kind of like a fun.
There was nothing really deep in that song or anything, but I use a lot of reverb on my stuff, and I think the reverb a lot of times, because pitchiness can get drowned out in reverb a little bit, which is why, like, when you go see people perform live, a lot of times they have live reverb on their microphone.
Yeah.
And it's partly for an effect. It's a certain sound that they're trying to go for, but it's also a way of masking pitchiness and masking if someone's a little flat or if they're sick and they're not hitting all those notes. The reverb creates this kind of spacey feel where that is able to sit in there. And I think a lot of times there is confusion between auto-tune and things like reverb and delay, because reverb and delay are still digital effects.
Right.
So it still has like that kind of like skeleton of sounding more digital than if you were to just have like a raw vocal or even have like reverb turned like way down. So like I use the plugin I use is Valhalla Reverb. It's my favorite. I've used a lot of reverbs over the years, and that one just gives the sound that I really want. And it gives a lot of options for like if you want it to sound like you're in a cathedral, if you want it to sound like you're in a bedroom, if you want it to sound like you're in a church, if you want it to sound like you're in a car park or what, like whatever it is, it has those different things. And for this particular record, I've cranked that up higher than I do on my normal stuff. So like normally I will only have reverb turned up to like a 6 or an 8, whereas a lot of the stuff I'm doing on this record has it up to like a 12 or sometimes even a 14. And the intention with that is to create this kind of spacey, ethereal airiness to it, which again kind of ties into the actual like things I'm singing about with Isle of Scotland specifically, where it's like this imagining yourself somewhere else. And so like when I think of like imagination and like I think of like, okay, like being outside of my own body and experiencing something that is not like reality. So whether that's dreaming, whether that's daydreaming, whether that's literally just like picturing something that is not reality, for whatever reason, I equate that to like kind of a spaciness and kind of like a whatnot. So like I'm not going to sit here and say I don't use autotune. I do. I use Melodyne, which is another tool that's used for pitch correction, but it's done on an actual note by note basis. So you can go in and you can chop up a vocal section and say, okay, the notes that are in this particular melody are C, G, E minor, D. And so when you look at those it chops it up based on whatever note is being sung, and then you can take that and you can look and say, oh, that's a little flat, or that's a little sharp, or that's whatever, and you can adjust it just slightly to smooth it over. When I'm putting together a studio version of a song that I'm putting out there, the goal for that is to be the most perfect version of that song possible. That's the intention, because if you want to come watch me play a concert, you're going to hear the live version. You're going to hear the flaws. You're going to hear the slight pitchiness. You're going to hear those different things that make it, I guess, more real. But it's no different than like if you were to like ask a baker to bake a cake and they're making a wedding cake for somebody, that final version of that cake, that baker wants that to be as perfect as possible. They're not going to provide you a cake that doesn't have the trim around the edges, or that doesn't have little flowers on it or whatever, because even though those flowers might not add to the taste of the cake, it might, but it does create that final product. And so when I am putting out a studio version of a song, I'm trying to get that to be as perfect as possible, which means smoothing out vocals, which means doing a little bit of pitch correction, which means putting effects on it to make sure that it sounds as perfect as it can be. And sometimes that can be a turnoff to people, and I get that. That not everything is for everybody, but I think that a lot of times it's missed that like the version of a song that an artist puts out is the version of the song that they wanted to create. And so for Isle of Scotland, for some of these other songs that we're going to be talking about, where I do have a lot of vocal layering on it, and I do have a lot of effects, and I do have different things on that, which give it more of a digital feel, it's because that's the version of that song that I had in my head when I started. So when I started writing this on an acoustic guitar, my brain works in a weird way where like the moment I start playing it on guitar, I can hear the other things that I want to add into it. I can hear if I want to put piano. I can hear where the bass line is going to be because I played bass. I can hear if I want any percussion at all, whether that's a full drum set, whether that's just like a kick drum, whether that's a cajon, whether that's like just a shaker or something that like kind of keeps that rhythm. I hear that stuff in my head. The same way that like an artist, when they start drawing something in their head, they see the final product before it actually ends up on that paper. That's kind of like how my brain works with music. And so when, like at the beginning when I said, if you guys subscribe and you listen to this acoustic version of the song that's going to be on my record, the reason I say that that's not going to be the final product is because that's not the product that I have envisioned in my head. There's other things that I want to add to that I think enhance the song and make it sound like what I want it to sound like. And sometimes that takes away from it from people, and that's okay. But I do think that like there's a lot of discourse, and it's all over YouTube, but I've seen it a lot recently, especially with the Ren and Chinchilla stuff that I've been doing, where people have been like, the live version is so much better. And for me, I don't look at different versions of a song as like better or worse. I look at different versions of a song as like, okay, this is a different envisioning of what that song might be. So one of my favorite bands is a band called The Dangerous Summer, and they put an album called Golden Record out in 2013. There's a song on that record called Sins, which was my favorite song on the record. They put out a deluxe version that had Sins reimagined, and it was a much more stripped down version of that song, and I loved that version. But then when I went back and I listened to the original version, I was like, I can see how this got to this, or I can see like, okay, he delivered the vocals in this area like this, but when he did it on the reimagined version, he did it like this. Because when we create music, if like, I'm such a fucking perfectionist, And if I let myself be, don't laugh at me. If I were to hold on to things until they were perfect, they would never be perfect, and I would never put anything out. Mm-hmm. And one of the best pieces of advice I ever got when it came to creating was from a writer named Ed Brisson, who writes for Marvel and DC and stuff. And he's a comic book writer, but he also writes other things. And I got the chance to interview him years ago, and he said, don't get it right, get it written. And that has always stuck with me, because it's like, I could sit around and wait until this song is perfect, but it's never going to be. Mm-hmm. So when I put something out, there's been many times where like I've put out a song and I'm like, damn it, a harmony would have been really good right there. Like, what if I would have added that into that? Or what if I would have like done this differently? Or why did I not try to hit that run there? Why did I just sing it regular when I know that I can hit that run, or I know that I can do that thing? Why didn't I put that in there? And I think a lot of it is like, as artists, we spend tens of hours on these songs. Like, every song that I've ever created has a minimum of 10 hours put into it, from conception to the very end. And some songs have even more than that. And some of that is the actual songwriting. Some of that is the production. A lot of that is the engineering and getting things to sound just how you want it to sound. But you have to get to a certain point where it's like, am I happy with this? And if I'm happy with it, then I think that's the closest I'm ever going to get. Mm-hmm. And then after the fact, there are probably going to be times where I'm like, man, I really wish I would have done that in there. But that is where live performances come into play, is where you can do those different things. You can sing things differently. You can add things. You can take things away if you aren't crazy about something. But that doesn't necessarily mean that one is better than the other. It just means that like there's only a certain level of completion that these things are ever going to get to. And regardless of if I think it's perfect or not, once that's out into the world, somebody's going to love it. Somebody's going to hate it. Somebody's going to be meh on it. There's going to be people everywhere in between, regardless of what that final product is. So I would rather put out something that I'm happy with, that I'm proud of, that accomplishes the vision of what that thing is the best that I can. Yep. Because then after the fact, if people want to talk shit about it, or if they aren't crazy about it or whatever, that's fine. Not everybody has to love it, but at least I'll be happy with like the way that ended up. Mm-hmm. I feel like I just talked for a very fucking long time.
That's okay. You were explaining the process.
I know. I don't like talking about myself, you know that.
I know. But I think it's important because, I mean, you do, like, everything you do is with intention. Like, you don't do anything that is not intentional when it comes to your music. And I think that, although we all love the stripped back acoustic ATD, like, I think that there's value in knowing the reason behind why you made the song the way you did. And for people to know that all of that is done with intention. Like, you didn't create this song and put it out there just so you could turn around and do an acoustic version of the song. Like, if that's what it was supposed to be, that's what you would have started with. Right. So I just think it's good to like explain your process. My phone just locked. Crap. All right. Did I miss? Nope. Where are we at? Okay, here we go. I'm good now. How do you feel when you hear this song now as the artist, not the performer? Oh. My elbow fell off.
Like, you're good. Like when I listened to it as a finished product.
Yes.
Versus like when I was listening to it while I was making it.
Yeah. Like now that it's out, how do you feel about it when you hear it?
It's a tough question because I just gave that whole spiel, but like I am so critical of myself. And so when I do listen to my songs that I've put out there after the fact, a lot of times I struggle with not criticizing, I should have done that differently in the mix, or
So
I
you're
should have
not-
sang that differently. I think there does eventually become a time, and it's usually years after the fact, where I can listen to a song and accept it for what it was, because in some way, my catalog of music that I've been putting out now since in this version of myself since like 2019 is a visual and audio representation of the growth that I've had as an artist. So when I go back and listen to a song that I put out in 2021 and I say, I can sit there and I can be like, man, I should have done this or I should have done that. But in 2021, I didn't know how to do those things. So I think there is like an element of catharsis going back and being like, I did a really good job of making this for what I knew and what I had at the time to be able to do that and then being able to enjoy that. I did actually have a conversation with somebody, and it might have even been one of my Between the Lines episodes, where sometimes I will go back and listen to a song that I created, and because my memory is so terrible, I don't always remember my process. I don't remember like how I did certain things.
Okay.
And I'll listen to it and I'll be like, how the fuck did I do that? Like dead serious. Like I'll listen to something and I'll be like, where did I come up with that melody? Or where did I come up with that riff, or like these different things? Because a lot of times once it's done, it's done. And like, I don't really perform much and like as like doing concerts and stuff anymore. And so they're not things that I'm performing on a regular basis. So when I create it and I put it out, that's what it is. And now the only time I listen to it is when the kids want to listen to it, or somebody is asking who has never heard my music before, and I have to like go through and figure out like what song am I going to show them or whatever. But like a perfect example is like I produced the beat on my song Brand New that I put out in 2021. And I go back and I listen to that beat and I'll pull that beat up in FL Studio and I'll be like, where was my head? Like I have no fucking clue how I came up with like the different sounds and things that I did for that. Or like DeLorean, like, which is a song that Ashton helped me produce by picking out all of the sounds, and then I put that all together. And I go back and I'm like, where did I even find that? What was I even like thinking to come up with that? So there are other times where like I feel so far removed from what it is that I created that it's like, did I make that? and then when I like sit down to make something new, I think that's where like I really struggle with the imposter syndrome, is like, I'm never going to be able to do what I just did again. I'm never going to be able to come up with like whatever the previous thing that I put out is. Like, I'm never going to be able to recreate that again, because
And then you do something even better.
that's up for debate. But I do think, and I don't know, maybe this is just me, but like I don't know that I've ever listened to my own music to enjoy my own music.
I think that's fair. I think it's kind of like acting. Like, I don't think that a lot of actors go and watch themselves in movies. Some of them don't even watch themselves because they don't want to watch because they're so critical. But like, I think it kind of goes both ways, where, you know, it is your art. It's something that you created and something that you came up with. And ultimately, you're the only one at the end of the day that knows what this piece of art is supposed to be. Mm-hmm. We just get what you're giving us, and we're like, oh, we love this. This is so good. And for you, you're like, oh my God, like you see all of the little intricate things that you wish you had done versus...
I think there's also an element of like, I've listened to this song so many goddamn times by the time it actually releases that like I don't want to listen to it anymore. So like, and it's a really weird thing where like So Isle of Scotland's a perfect example because I wrote and started recording that song over 2 years ago, and then I just put it out last year. So like I had been sitting with that song and I had been tweaking it and I had been doing different things and re-recording different things, and I upgraded equipment. So I re-recorded my vocals on the new equipment, and then I upgraded my just these different things to where like whatever I was using when I initially started on things, I have better stuff now. And so now, because I haven't put the song out yet, I want to go back and redo everything to use the stuff that I have now. So like I've listened to these songs hundreds of times. And even like during the mixing process, like when there's certain things that I'm trying to do or trying to tweak or trying to get things mixed in a certain way, I'm listening to these little like loops of clips of like 10 to 15 seconds long on a loop over and over and over and over and over again.
I think you did that in Pop Hit when I was here because I was like, oh my gosh, I can't hear this little chunk of the song. Like I cannot listen to this anymore.
Yeah. So by the time I put it out and everybody's hearing it like for the first time, and I think this is what's cool about the reaction community, and I never equated these things until now, but like when I'm creating something, that entire process is, while it's fun, while it's cathartic, it's also painful because it's so much repetition. And then when I put it out and I get comments on it, there are times where I'll go back and listen to the song with that person's comment in mind, because it almost allows me to hear my own song in a way for the first time, similar to like when you watch somebody doing a reaction video, you're watching them react to it for the first time and living vicariously through them. So when I get people that point out specific things in my music and I go back and listen to it, a perfect example of this is somebody, one of the beats that I made on my demos, my B-sides and bullshit album that came out at the beginning of this year. One of the beats, I put a video up on it as like a YouTube short, and somebody commented on it, and they referenced, and now I'm totally blanking on what it was, but they referenced something and was like, am I wrong in thinking that like this is what that was? And I went back and I re-listened to it and I was like, oh my God, I can't unhear this now. Like, and it was something that I did genuinely love, but it was just like a subconscious thing. It wasn't something I intended to put into the beat. But then somebody like pointed that out and I was like, oh my God, that does sound like that. Like, that's so cool. And so those experiences are really fun when somebody points something out and I can go back and listen to it and it is almost like hearing it for the first time. But all of that to say, like, I don't know that I ever really go and listen to my music just to enjoy what I've created. Almost every time I'm listening to it, it's to memorize it. It's to critique it. It's to see what I did last time. If there's something that I want to repeat, it's to pull something, some information or some kind of like knowledge from it to be able to make the next thing better.
Okay. Is there a lyric that you would like listeners to sit with for a while and really feel?
That's a good question. I think that there's a lot of people in this community that are people pleasers. Not to call all of you out, because I'm absolutely that way too. And I think that tends to be a trait of empathetic and compassionate people. Is we want to see other people happy. We want to see other people filled with joy. We want to make sure that if we're experiencing something negative, that other people aren't experiencing that. And the second verse says, "I've been wasting so much of my time trying to please someone I don't even know." And the origin of that lyric is like, I thought I knew who my parents were, and then once I kind of had that bubble burst and I started to see them for who they really were, it was like, why am I trying so hard to please somebody that like I'm never going to be able to please? Why am I breaking my back to do something for somebody that's never going to appreciate it, that's never going to acknowledge it, that's never going to actually like value what it is that I'm doing? And that is a line that, like, when I do listen to this song, that particular line still sticks with me because it's still something that I struggle with in friendships that I've lost over the years, in just working through trauma from my past. And when people hear that, I just want people to realize that, like, sometimes people just aren't going to accept what you want to offer them. And that is not a reflection of you. That's not a reflection of your value or what you have to give or the amount of love that you deserve. That is wholly that other person's responsibility. And so I think that's part of the reason why in a lot of my music and in a lot of the things that I talk about, like, I always try to make it a point to, like, anybody who is interacting with me or my music, that they know that, like, they are worthy, that they are valuable just because they are. That you don't have to do something or be something or fit into any kind of a mold to make somebody else happy at your own expense. You are worthy and have value simply because you exist. And that's something that I'm trying to teach myself. And that's something that, like, that particular lyric, even to this day, is something that I guess I want people to think about and, like, look at their own lives and be like, where are you putting time and energy that you shouldn't be? Not because you're doing something wrong by giving that energy, but to assess, like, is that person worth giving that energy to?
I like that answer. Okay. Well, what? We've been a little over an hour.
Yeah.
So I have a couple, like, fun ones.
Okay, good. Because my anxiety is so high right now.
What? You're doing so good.
But I don't like... I know that I talk a lot, but I don't like talking about myself. It makes me uncomfortable.
Okay. I think I might know the answer to this one. I'm not sure. What is the most unexpected place that you have ever stopped and had to write lyrics down?
I have written so many songs while taking a shit.
I did not know the answer to that question.
But I did the song off of Broken Complete.
The gas station.
Yes.
Right?
I pulled over. Why can't I remember any of the names of my own songs? What is wrong with me right now? And of course it's not wanting to. There we go. Perfect. So I wrote a song called Perfect. That's off of my 2021 album, Broken Complete. And for those who don't know, because I don't know that I've talked about it maybe a little bit, but Amber and I started as long distance. I was living in Michigan at the time. She was down here in Missouri. And so I had a 7 to 7.5 hour trip both directions. So I would leave early on a Friday. I'd get here for Friday evening. We'd hang out Friday night, Saturday. And then at some point I would leave on Sunday. And sometimes if I was actually responsible, I would leave by 12 or 1. Many times I would stay hella late and I wouldn't get back home till 2 or 3 a.m. because I just wanted to spend as much time with you as I could. Yeah. And a lot of times, like during that, I wrote a good chunk of Broken Complete during that period of time where we were long distance, because I would get into a car and I would like put on like productions that I had made or things that I had been working on or whatever, and I would just start writing to them while I was driving, and I would dictate it. So like I would like record into like a voice memo. Like I'd come up with so it was like late night drives listening to Panic, and it was literally like I was driving home this one time and I was listening to Panic at the Disco, which is her favorite band and one that I love as well. And I think that particular weekend we had like just been on a Panic kick, and we were just like the whole weekend everywhere we drove.
It was literally late night drives listening.
Yeah, it was literally. So like, and sometimes that's like the inspiration from things that are like so literal where it's like, it literally just was that. So I started writing that, and I was like trying to dictate it and put it into a Google Doc. And I just like got hit with like all of this inspiration. And like 3 hours into my drive, I told her, I was like, I had to pull over because I started writing this song. And I sat in like a Love's truck stop parking lot and wrote the entirety of the rest of this song. And then, and this was one of the trips where like I had left super late.
Yeah.
So like I still had 4.5 hours to go. And it was like 9 p.m. and I was going to gain an hour because Missouri's an hour behind what Michigan is. And I was like, I don't care. I started doing this. And then I think I recorded I had the music playing on in the background, and I just recorded like, hey, I started writing this. What do you think of this?
Yeah.
And I wrote the entire song.
Yeah.
So.
Had the beat playing in his car.
Yeah.
And like voice messaged me and sang. And I was like, yeah, I was trying to like put it together because it was really hard to like, well, first I think you sent me just the lyrics, like the Google Doc of lyrics, and I am not, my brain does not work that way. I can't read lyrics and be like, oh yeah, I can read a song out of this. That is one of my favorite songs.
But I write a lot of songs while taking a shit.
Good to know.
I have instrumentals that I have in my headphones, like, and if I'm working on something, I'll just like.
So that's why it takes you forever, because you're writing songs.
A lot of good songs have been written on the throne, and it's not just me. I've talked to so many other artists and musicians that write on the toilet, because it's solitude and it's alone time, and it's like this is like the place where my thoughts can come together.
Fair enough.
I've written so many punchlines on the toilet.
Oh my god. Okay. Jesus. All right. So I Love Scotland.
Yes.
If this song had a color palette, what would that color palette be?
It would be a monochromatic spectrum of like emerald to like seafoam green.
Okay.
Like a very, very like
mossy kind of.
Yeah. And like kind of like a spectrum of like some of the dark versions of the green with like the lights and even like a maybe like a light olive color and like that, like greens in general.
Okay.
And maybe that's like cliche for Scotland and like
no, I think it makes sense though.
The green hills there and everything, but like that's that, and maybe like a few like a sky blue or like something like that of like the sky or the ocean or something to kind of like go with that. But again, I'm very metaphorical and the way that I think, but I like that question.
It's a fun one. I have one more.
Okay.
Out of your entire discography, what song do you feel is the most like you, and what song do you feel is the most unlike you?
Ooh, unlike you is easy. Backwoods. That is not.
Oh my god! I forgot about that song.
So I put out a song with my buddy Kingish. Shout out to Kingish. Love that kid. But he came to me several years ago and was like, hey, I think I'm kind of starting to like venture into like the country rap thing. And he was like, I like your voice. I like the grit and stuff that you have in your voice. Would you be willing to make a country song? And I was like, I'll do my best. And like, it's so not me. Like
you did really well though.
I appreciate it. That's the one song in my catalog that I cringe at the most. And I know a lot of people that like our buddy Travis loves that
he
song.
loves that song.
Like there's a lot of people that love that song, and I'm proud of it from that perspective, but it feels so I'm such a city boy. And like I have elements of like I rode horses as a kid, and like I've done different things that like our country.
You had to like dig deep to get that country like grit sound to you.
And it was difficult because I didn't want to like overstate it, because like I grew up in Alabama. I've grown up in the South, and so like I at various points in my life have had an accent, but I didn't want to be disrespectful to people, and I didn't want to go too much of a like I didn't know if like putting too much of a twang in there was going to be like disrespectful, or if it
doing with your wrist. Are you a gay cowboy?
I mean, I am queer, but we both are. Jesus Christ. But I didn't want to put it on as like a like
performative.
Make it performative, yeah. And so I leaned into more of like the like Chris Stapleton-ish, like gritty, like almost rock country, like Southern rock kind of a thing with it. That's definitely the most unlike me for sure. The most like me. Oh man.
I'm interested to hear this one.
That's tough, because like I feel like part of the reason why I make so much music and so many different kinds of music is because I don't know that there is like one singular part of me. I think it might. Oh man, this is great interviewing right now, because I just like that one caught me.
He did that. Yeah, he did not know any of the questions I was going to ask.
I actually told her I did not want to know them. Do I have to give one?
You can give me two.
Worst Enemy, which is kind of like a mid 2000s 2010s pop punk pop rock song, a la Mayday Parade, All Time Low.
That's a really good one.
Well, thank you. And that's with my good friend Undie, and she's fantastic. I feel like that song is very indicative of my high school years, from the kind of music that I listened to during that time, which was very like anything that was on Fearless Records, anything that was on Hopeless Records, The Starting Line, Sparks the Rescue, just like that era of like pop rock, pop punk. And then probably Bad Habit.
That's the one I was thinking.
Because I think that's like I grew up on boom bap hip hop. So like I grew up on like Nas and Common, and even things like, which this is not so much boom bap, but like DMX, obviously Eminem, but Eminem's not really, he has done boom bap stuff, but Lupe Fiasco, and Lupe's a huge influence of mine. And I think Bad Habit is like the most natural I have ever felt writing a rap verse, because it wasn't about crazy lyrical punchlines. It wasn't about crazy wordplay. But it was about very deliberate delivery of how I'm saying things along with what I'm actually saying. Like that's probably one of the most like lyrically, all of my stuff is like authentic to me and what I'm writing about. But that particular one was very like raw in its emotion when I was writing it. Like I even remember the very, very first time. So that's a song that I did with Ricky Desktop, who was blowing up on TikTok around that time with a bunch of the banjo beat and the chicken wing, hot dog and bologna. He had like a bunch of stuff around that time, and I just hit him up and I was like, I love this beat. I started writing. I think it was literally just a duet. I think he had posted, it was the watermelon beat is what it was. He had posted it on his TikTok, and I think I just did a duet to it, and I just did like a verse, like a short verse, and it was one of my first viral videos. Like several 100,000 views on it. And to me, that was like confirmation of like, I can do this, and there's an audience for it, and like people can appreciate what it is. And so that one I feel like it was also the first one that I ever shot a music video for, which I think also like gives it a place in my heart that's like very special, because there's like memories tied to it.
Yeah.
In a very like real way. Shout out to Max Beecher for the music video on that. But yeah, so I would say probably Worst Enemy, which is again kind of like a pop rock, pop punk track, and then Bad Habit. But there are some things on my upcoming album that I think could find their way into that place. But they are songs that have not been released, and that I can't talk about yet.
All right. See, that wasn't so bad.
I survived my first gauntlet.
You did. So I do want to open it up to you guys, because we're going to go through his new album and songs that he already has out. So the ones that you already have out right now is Isle of Scotland. You have Deconstruct and Bones. Are those the only three?
Nothing More, and Down the Coast as well. So
that's right. So there's 5.
Last year I put out 3 singles: Isle of Scotland, Down the Coast, and Nothing More. And then Deconstruct and Bones I put out this year.
So we started with Isle of Scotland. Our next one that we're going to do is Down the Coast.
Yeah.
But like, if you guys have questions, if there's things that you want to ask him, things that you might want to know about the song, or just any questions in general, put them in the comments, and I will be going through and looking, and I'll save some. And
this also gives you guys, because these songs are already out, it gives you guys an opportunity to go listen to them between now and when we do this next one, so that if you do have specific questions about Down the Coast or the songs that we're going to be doing, you'll have time to drop those in the comments and ask away. That
was it. I hope you guys liked it. This was fun for me. I learned a lot, and hopefully you guys did too, and got to kind of peek behind your process and see what you do and how you get to where the song is out. So yeah.
I'm not going to give a huge spiel now, because that was intense.
Intense?
Yeah.
I was gentle.
No, not you. Weren't intense. You weren't intense. That was intense for me, just because like these tend to be conversations that I have with other artists and musicians behind the scenes. These are not things that like I get asked questions about very often. Not that people don't have those questions, but there's just like, there's not always a great space for me to be able to like, because like I could post something on TikTok or YouTube or whatever, and someone can hop down in the comments, but normally I'm limited to whatever the character count is of how I'm going to respond to that. So it is kind of cool to be able to elaborate a little bit more. And for all of you that stuck around for almost an hour and a half, I do really appreciate you. And hopefully you guys enjoyed the conversation. There are going to be more of these. This is not going to necessarily be on the same schedule as like Between the Lines is, where it's like an every other week kind of a thing. I'm thinking honestly, like, we'll just, when we have time, we'll make them and try to get them out there to you.
We got kids.
Yeah.
And we work.
But it'll be more based around my releases versus something that is like because we're not necessarily going to go through like my entire discography because there's a lot of stuff there, but to be intentional about this new record, and then when I put out new things after that.
Well, and there might be like, we have the intention of doing these with this new album in general, just because of the type of music that you're putting out. But I mean, we would be open to, if there's a song that he has from previous that maybe you guys have questions about it. Maybe you want us to do a deep dive on something that's in his older catalog. Like, we can do that. Like, we absolutely can do that. Just put it in the comments and ask away. But yeah.
Well, thank you guys so much for sticking around for the first episode of Soundcheck Sessions featuring Amber and AmBam
Architeect.
and Architect. Is that what we settled on? AmBam and Architect. Thank you guys. I appreciate all of you. As I mentioned at the beginning, make sure to subscribe, click the like button, click that little bell, follow on all the socials, and you can find the link for Isle of Scotland in the description below. I'm going to put that down there so it's easy for you guys to find it. And we'll see you guys back here for the next one.
Bye.